I found out my fiancé gave away the ring I designed on a Tuesday night. The email came in at 11:47 p.m., anonymous sender, no subject line. Just one photo attached. I opened it while my third cup of coffee sat seagulling on the desk, and my fingers went numb before my brain caught up with what I was seeing. The ring was mine. I'd recognize every millimeter of that setting, every curve I'd reshaped 17 times before I got the light refraction exactly right. I'd named it Aurora's HRT because the lab-grown sapphire threw blue-violet spa RKS across the ceiling whenever the afternoon sun hit my workbench. I'd spent 3 months on that ring. 3 months of sleepless nights and bloody cuticles and R&D guys telling me the prong design was too delicate to cast. I proved them wrong. I always prove them wrong. In the photo, the ring sat on a leather desk pad I'd never seen before. Not my desk. Not my APO it meant. But I knew the background. That stupid purple sandalwood brush pot on the shelf behind it. The one Joe Mignon bought at auction last spring and made me swear never to touch because it was too expensive for your clumsy hands. His exact words. I remember them because I'd just finished paying off his credit card bill that morning. The inner band had been ground down. My signature wasn't there anymore. Someone had taken a fine grit tool and erased the 3 tiny characters I'd engraved beneath the setting, the ones that Mark had the piece as mine. In their place, a single letter. S. I read at that letter for a long time. Then I closed the email, opened my brokerage account, and watched the numbers refresh. The stock I'd bought 3 hours ago with my entire savings, the one Mignon told me was a stupid gamble and not worth the electricity you're wasting researching it, had quadrupled at today's close. I sat in the arcade of my studio, surrounded by half-finished prototypes and disc A ride renderings, and I didn't cry. I didn't punch anything. I just pulled up the corporate directory for Sue Group and found the name I was looking for. My phone rang before I could dial. Mignon's face lit up the screen, that photo of him at the beach I'd taken 2 summers ago, the one where he looked genuinely happy. I let it ring. On the 3rd ring, I answered, "Baby." His voice came through warm and sleepy and so perfectly practiced it made my teeth ache. "Sorry I'm late. The client dinner ran long. Don't wait up, okay, get some sleep." "Which client?" I asked. He paused. Half a second. "Just enough. The energy guys. The ones from Shenzhen. You wouldn't know them." "Mignon," I said, and my voice came out steady, which surprised me. "I need you to be honest with me about one thing. Just one."
Of course, babe.
"What's wrong? You sound weird. Is it the deadline I told you that freelance stuff isn't worth losing sleep over? Is there anything you want to tell me about the ring?" Silence stretched between us, long enough that I counted 7 of my own heartbeats. Then he laughed. Not his real laugh, the one he did when he actually found something funny. This was the CA refill laugh, the one he used when he'd forgotten an anniversary or promise to pick me up from the airport and got stuck in a meeting. "The ring, babe, you're being paranoid."
It's on my nightstand right now.
"I brought it out when I was picking cufflinks this morning. Haven't put it back yet. You want me to video call you and show you?" "Yes," I said. "I really do." The line went dead for 3 seconds. Then the call dropped. Then my messages sta route blowing up with excuses, so elaborate they'd have won our RDS in a creative writing contest. Network issues. Bad reception. Power outage in his building. His phone died, and he'd call me back in 5 minutes. I thumbed through the texts while I opened the second document in that anonymous email. The one I hadn't clicked on yet because I knew, deep in my gut, that once I saw it, nothing would ever be the same. It was a transaction receipt. 11:45 in the morning, 3 days ago. A high-end restaurant on the Bund. 2 set menus, champagne pairing, dessert cart add-on. The credit card on file was his corporate Amex. The reservation name was Sued. I closed the attachment and dialed the number I'd pulled from Sue Group's public directory. The direct line for Sue Wan's personal assistant. I'd urged her 6 months ago when I was pitching for the jewelry line contract. 24 years old, only child of the Sue family patria RCH. Social media presence meticulously curated to show nothing but ART exhibitions and charity galas. The kind of girl who wore $400 AR lipstick and probably didn't know what a Dremel tool was. Someone answered on the second ring. A woman's voice, lower than I'd expected, with a hoa RSE edge that suggested she'd been crying or yelling or both. Hello, Suwon. I kept my voice quiet. The ringer we ring right now. The blue sapphire with the spiral prongs. I need you to touch the inside of the band. Use your fingernail and scrape it lightly against the metal NEA the base. Tell me what you feel. Silence. Then a Sha RP inhale so loud I pulled the phone away from my EAR. Who is this? My name is Lin Shi. I designed that ring. It has my signature engraved on the interior, and I can send you photographs of the original C80 renderings, the wax castings, every single iteration from first sketch to final polish. The man who gave it to you told you it came from Italy, didn't he? From some atelier in Florence that only works with private clients. She didn't answer. He RD, her breathing speed up. He RD what sounded like a door slamming in the background. He said it was a one-of-a-kind commission, she finally whispered. He said it cost more than my first CAR. He made me promise not to tell anyone because he wanted it to be just between us. Do you know what he's been telling me about you? Probably that I'm a nobody. A freelancer. Someone who draws pretty pictures for pocket money while he does the real work. He told me you were an old college friend, that you lived in a tiny apartment, and he was helping you out of financial difficulty. That the two of you were basically over, just waiting for the lease to run out.
I laughed.
I didn't mean to, but it came out anyway, Sha RP and short and completely genuine. Suwon, I'm going to send you a link to my portfolio. Then I want you to look up the name of the jewelry line Su Group tried to launch last year. The one that fell through because the proposed designer lacked brand alignment. You'll find my name in the bidding documents. I don't understand. Meet me tomorrow. Noon at the coffee place on the 80th floor of China World Tower. I'll show you the bank statements for the joint account he doesn't know I've been tracking. I'll show you the receipts for the furniture he bought with money Rened. And I'll show you how he paid for that ring. Hint, it wasn't his money. She agreed. I could tell she was trying to sound controlled, but her voice cracked on the last word. She'd be there. She had to know. I knew that feeling intimately, the need to see the wreckage with your own eyes, even when every instinct screams at you to look away. I spent the rest of that night doing what I do best. I worked. I pulled up the original design files for Aurora's HRT and STA route, building something new. Something bigger. Something that would require more than 3 months and a single sapphire to complete. I worked until the sun came up over the skyline, until my fingers cramped and my vision blurred, until the coffee pot ran dry and I had to switch to cold tap water at 7:23 a.m. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of a WhatsApp conversation between Mingyuan and a contact saved as S. The message said, "Don't worry about last night. She's just emotional because of work. I'll handle it." Followed by a string of reassuring emojis that made me want to throw my phone across the room. I didn't. I saved the screenshot, forwarded it to my own encrypted folder, and STA route getting dressed. I wore the cheapest things I owned. The faded jeans with the frayed hem. The gray cashmere sweater I'd bought from a street vendor 3 winters ago. The one with the tiny hole in the elbow that Mingyuan had repeatedly asked me to throw away. No makeup. No jewelry except my grandmother's silver bracelet, the one she'd given me the day I told her I was quitting my safe government job to pursue design. She'd laughed and said, "Then you'll need something to remind you where home is." I wore that bracelet like a mirror. Suwon was already at the coffee place when I arrived. I'd expected a face full of Chanel and attitude. What I got was a girl in a black turtleneck, no makeup, mascara tracks drying on her cheeks, chewing the cuff of a jacket so expensive I could have paid my rent for 6 months with its price tag. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment, I saw her trying to reconcile the person in front of her with whatever image Mingyuan had created. "You're her," she said. Not a question. "I'm her." I sat down across from her and slid my phone across the table. START scrolling. The account statements START from last January. Highlighted entries repurchases he made that I didn't authorize. The ones in red the things he bought for you. Her fingers were shaking as she swiped through the documents. I watched her face shift through about 12 different emotions in the space of 3 minutes. Denial, confusion,
Rage.
something that looked like guilt. Then back to rage, hotter and sharper than before. He told me you were a hobbyist, she said, shoving the phone back at me. He said you drew designs for fun and sometimes sold them on some obscure website, that you had no formal training and no real career. He told me you were the one who was trying to get something out of him. Sounds like him. I took the phone back, pocketed it, and signaled the waiter for coffee.
Black. 2 Suga RS.
The way I'd been drinking it since graduate school, when caffeine was a survival tool rather than a luxury. He also told me you were beautiful and rich and completely out of his league, which is probably true. I'm guessing he found you through your father's business connections. She nodded, her jaw tight. The energy project. He came to pitch at our offices. He was the only one who brought custom gifts for the whole team. Thoughtful little things, nothing too flashy. He said he'd done his research on what everyone liked. My father thought he was charming. Your father thought he was useful. Soo-won laughed, and it was an ugly sound, raw and broken.
Yeah.
That too. He's been pushing me to settle down, you know I'm 24. He's been showing me pictures of eligible young men since I turned 18. When Mingwon showed up with a background in renewables and a Goldman Sachs smile, my dad basically shoved me at him. I watched her pick at the cuff of her jacket, that expensive wool slowly fraying under her nails. She was younger than me by 4 years, but in that moment, she looked about 17.
Lost. Angry.
Trying so hard to act like she had it together that the effort was practically visible here. I pulled out my tablet and brought up the original design file. This is what you have on your finger right now. Time-lapse of the whole process. Every draft, every rejection, every time I stayed up all night because the prong angle was 1 degree off and the stone wouldn't sit properly. 3 months of my life in one folder. She read at the screen. Her eyes got red again. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know what he stole. Not just from me. From you too. He took that ring and told you it was a declaration of love. It wasn't. It was a line item on an expense report he planned to justify as a client entertainment gift. I found the draft email he was going to send to his CFO. Soo-won pressed both hands against her face and made a sound like a wounded animal. The couple at the next table glanced over. I didn't look at them. I kept my eyes on her because I'd been where she was sitting 6 years ago, when a different man had shown me the same kind of pretty lies. I'd believed them too. I'd wanted to believe them so badly that I'd ignored every red flag, every inconsistency, every little voice in my head that said something didn't add up. I'm sorry, she said through her fingers. I'm sorry he did that to you. I'm sorry I was part of it. I didn't know, I swear to you, I had no idea. I know you didn't. That's why I called you instead of just posting the proof online and watching him burn. I reached across the table and touched her wrist. Her pulse was racing, rabbit fast. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to ask if you want to help me take him down. She lowered her hands. Her eyes were swollen and red but sharp now. The fog of TRS Clea ring into something more focused. My brother. You need to meet my brother. I need to what, Soo-yen? He runs the investment side of our group. He was the one who vetoed your jewelry proposal last year, but it wasn't because of the work. It was because he thought your pricing was too fair. He said anyone who quotes that low is either desperate or hiding something. He's been interested in your portfolio ever since. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, a shadow fell across our table. You're RLY, Soo-won said, her voice shifting into something more composed, almost formal. I turned around. The man standing behind me was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a navy suit that had clearly been tailored within an inch of its life. His face was all sharp angles and seagull eyes, the kind of face that didn't give anything away unless it wanted to. He looked familiar. I'd seen him before, sitting at the FAR end of the pitch table during my final rejection meeting. He'd been the only person in that room who hadn't looked bored. Lin Shi, he said. No question. Just my name, like he'd been waiting to say it. I've been looking at your design files for the past 18 months. I'm the one who saved them from the reject pile after the BOA RD shut down the project. I've been wondering when we'd finally meet properly. He extended his hand. I took it. His palm was warm, his grip firm, and somewhere in the background, I heard Suwon trying to hold back a laugh that sounded suspiciously like relief. Behind him, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city spread out in a grid of glass and steel and morning light. I thought about the ring on Suwon's finger, the stock in my portfolio, the series of text messages still piling up from Zhou Mingyuan, who was probably frantically trying to figure out why his fiancé wasn't answering his calls. You're right, I said to Su Yan, and I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile I wore when I was about to prove someone wrong. We should talk. Asterisk, if you want to know what happens when I walk into Su Yan's office with a year's worth of financial records and a 3-phase revenge plan, follow my story. I post updates every Wednesday and Sunday. New readers get the first chapter free. Comment Aurora below, and I'll send you the full timeline of every single thing I designed for that man before he knew I was keeping receipts. Asterisk. Su Yan's office was on the 42nd floor, and the elevator ride up took exactly 47 seconds. I counted them because I didn't have anything else to do except stand there trying to figure out why my heart was beating faster than it should have been. Suwon had peeled off to take a call from her father, leaving me alone with her brother in a glass box that moved through the sky like a slow-motion bullet. He didn't talk. He just leaned against the elevator wall and watched me with this calm, unreadable expression that made me want to check my teeth for spinach. When the doors opened, he gestured for me to go first, and I walked into an office that looked less like a workspace and more like a contemporary art gallery someone had accidentally left a desk in. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides. A sofa that probably cost more than my entire IPO building. Bookshelves filled with actual books, not decorative props, and I could see spines on corporate finance, architectural theory, and at least 3 volumes on gemology. That one made me pause. You read about stones, I said, not meaning to say it out loud. I read about everything. But I was particularly interested in your technique for double claw prongs. Most designers avoid them because they're structurally unstable if the metal thickness varies by even half a millimeter. You didn't just avoid the problem. You redesigned the entire setting to accommodate it. I turned to look at him. He'd moved to a side table and was pouring tea from a pot that had been waiting there, steam curling up in slow ribbons. His hands were steady, precise, the kind of hands that had probably never dropped a single thing in their entire lives. You remember that from the pitch deck, I said. I was at the bottom of the pile.
Nona me plate.
No water glass. They didn't even let me do my full presentation. I remember. He handed me a cup. I also remember your rendering software had expired updates, which meant you were working on a legacy version. That told me you were either underfunded or being underpaid by someone who didn't value your equipment. I made a note to track your CA rear after the rejection. I wanted to see what you do next. I took the tea. Earl Grey, which I hadn't expected. The kind of weirdly specific choice that suggested either he'd guessed correctly or he'd looked me up before I walked through that door. Given what I knew about the Su family's business practices, I put my money on option 2, so you've been watching me for 18 months, I said. Must have been a boring 18 months. I mostly just worked and went to the grocery store and occasionally argued with my fiancé about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. Your fiancé. His voice went flat on the word. The one who gave my sister a ring that belongs to you. That stopped me. I'd been about to sit down, but I stopped halfway and straightened back up. You knew. You knew the whole time. Suwon called me last night, 15 minutes after you hung up with her. She was crying so hard I couldn't understand half of what she said, but I got the gist. She sent me the photos you'd 4-way ride. Then she sent me 3 RS of her own private texts with Zhou Mingyuan. Do you know what he told her about you? She told me. The old college friend story. The financial difficulty. The basically over excuse. Su Yan set down his teacup with a click that was too precise to be accidental. He told her you were obsessive. that you'd become unhealthily attached to him, and he was worried about how you'd react when he finally ended things. He told her you'd gotten a restraining order against your previous ex, which I checked, and is completely false, by the way. He framed you as unstable so that when you inevitably confronted her, she'd dismiss you as a jealous wreck. He's been playing chess with both of you for months. I sank into the chair across from his desk. My legs had gone weirdly weak, and I was grateful for the solid leather underneath me. How do you know about the previous ex? His eyes flickered. Just a tiny movement, but I caught it. Because I had someone look into you after Soo-won called. I needed to know if you were legitimate before I let my sister anywhere NEARU. You are more than legitimate. You're the most underutilized design talent in the city, and Jo Ming-yuan is an idiot who didn't know what he had. He knew exactly what he had, I said. That's why he kept it. He just didn't want Shari credit for it. Soo-yen nodded like I'd confirmed something he already suspected. Then he pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and slid it across the desk. Tawa, RD. On the screen was a series of messages between him and someone else, someone whose contact name was just an initial. I had a meeting with my head of private equity this morning, he said. After I got off the phone with Soo-won, I made some calls. Jo Ming-yuan's energy project is currently in the middle of a Series D fundraising round. They've been struggling to find investors because their cash flow projections are, to put it kindly, optimistic. They need about $50 million to close. They've been pitching to everyone in town and no one's biting. I read the messages. Words like valuation gap and due diligence red flags jumped out. Then I saw the last line, the one Soo-yen had sent at 6 a.m. Tell him we're interested, but we want a face-to-face. And he brings his designer. I looked up.
Me.
He brings me. He doesn't know you've already met my sister. He doesn't know we've been talking. As far as he's concerned, you're still the supportive girlfriend who stays home and makes him coffee while he runs his empire. Soo-yen's mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. I want you in that meeting. I want you to sit there and look at him while I ask him questions he can't answer without exposing himself. And I want you to be we ring the ring. Which ring? The one your sister has? No. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring that made my breath stop in my throat. It was Aurora's HRT. Not the replica I'd been planning to make. The original. The one I'd given to Jo Ming-yuan with TRS in my eyes and a letter I'd spent 3 drafts trying to get right. How did you get this? My voice came out. Soo-won brought it to me this morning. She took it off her finger the second she got home last night. She said it felt wrong. We ring something that was never meant for her. I had it cleaned and repolished, and I made sure the engraving on the inside was restored to its original state. Your name is back where it belongs. I couldn't speak. I looked at the ring, at the sapphire I'd picked out myself from a supplier who'd NEARLY refused to sell to me because I wasn't a certified buyer. I looked at the prongs I'd hand-filed until my fingers bled. And I looked at the man who had gone out of his way to fix something he had no obligation to repair. Why are you helping me? I asked. I'm nobody. I'm a freelancer who doesn't even have health insurance. You're the heir to a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. This is way below your pay grade. Soo-yen leaned back in his chair and studied me for a long moment. The morning light was hitting his face at an angle that made him look almost soft, which I suspected was an illusion. Nothing about this man was soft. 3 reasons, he said, ticking them off on his fingers. 1. My sister is a mess and someone needs to teach her how to vet her romantic partners because she clearly didn't RN from the last 3 disasters. 2. Jo Ming-yuan has been bad-mouthing Soo Group in private circles for months, claiming we missed out on his project and that our investment team is incompetent. I don't like people who use my family's name to boost their own credibility. He paused. His fingers dropped back to the desk, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter. 3. I've been looking for someone who thinks the way you think. Your design file for Aurora's HRT had structural solutions that my in-house team never even attempted. You solved a problem they'd been working on for 2 years, and you did it in 3 months while working alone on expired software. That kind of talent doesn't come along often. I'm not about to let some 2-bit grifter waste it because he wants a pretty ring to give to his other girlfriend. I sat there, trying to process what he'd just said. The tea was wa rm in my hands. The room was quiet except for the distant hum of the air conditioning, and somewhere in the building below us, Zhou Mingyuan was probably still sending me frantic texts that I'd been ignoring for the past hour. Okay, I said finally. Let's say I do this. I show up to your meeting. We are the ring. I sit there while you are him, apart. What happens after, that depends on you. Su Yan stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. I'm launching a new jewelry division. Not under Su Group's traditional brand. Something fresh, something that actually pays attention to design, instead of just slapping a logo on whatever the minds push out. I want you to head it. Full creative control. Budget that's actually adequate. The works. My jaw dropped. I could feel it happening, that slow unhinging that made me look like a dying fish. I snapped my mouth shut and tried to remember how to form words. You're offering me a job, I said, based on one design file and a sob story about my cheating fiancé. I'm offering you a job based on 18 months of watching you produce consistently excellent work despite being actively undermined by the people closest to you. The cheating fiancé is just the final piece of evidence that you're overdue for better treatment. He turned back around, and this time the almost smile on his face was real. Plus, Suwon likes you. She usually hates everyone I try to hire. I laughed. It came out broken and slightly hysterical, but it was real. Your sister tried to steal my fiancé. She didn't try to steal him. He tried to use her. There's a difference, and I suspect you're SMART enough to know which one is which. He walked back to his desk and sat down, pulling out a tablet and sliding it Tawa RD me. Here's the proposal I've been drafting for the new division. Read it, sign it if you want, but I'm not asking for an answer today. I'm asking for one thing right now. I want you to come to the meeting tomorrow morning.
10 o'clock.
Conference room. We are the ring. Look him in the eye the whole time. Let him see what he lost. I reached for the tablet. My fingers were still shaking, but I made them steady. I scrolled through the proposal, reading lines about equity splits and creative autonomy and a lab budget that made my eyes water. This wasn't just a job offer. This was a lifeline. I have conditions, I said. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. First, Suwon stays involved. Not in a client capacity. I want her as part of a team. She's got good taste, and she's SMART, and she's been lied to by enough men that she probably understands what actual quality looks like. She'll be my second set of eyes. Su Yan's eyebrows went up. That's not what I expected. Second, I'm not signing anything until tomorrow's meeting is over. I want to see how you handle yourself in front of him. I've been burned by Cha or Mengmen before. I'm not getting into another situation where I'm the only one who shows up with my eyes open. He nodded slowly.
Fair.
And third, I took a deep breath. My hands were steady now, my voice steady too. Third, I want you to tell me the real reason you saved my design files. Not the talent thing, not the business thing. The real reason. The one you haven't said out loud yet. Su Yan looked at me for a long, long time. The hum of the air conditioning filled the space between us. Outside, a plane was banking over the city, its wing catching the light like a knife blade. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Rely above a murmur, because you signed the bottom of your proposal with a little sketch of a phoenix. That's what I remembered. Not the double claw prongs, not the budget, not any of the technical details. I remembered that you drew a bird rising out of fire on the last page of your presentation, and I wondered what kind of person adds something like that to a corporate pitch deck. I wanted to meet her, and now I have. I read at him. The Phoenix thing had been a complete impulse, a tiny doodle I'd added when I was nervous and needed something to do with my hands. I'd forgotten about it entirely until this second. That's the first real thing you've said to me all morning. I said, it won't be the last. He stood up again and offered his hand across the desk. 10 o'clock tomorrow. Conference room. Don't be late. I took his hand. His grip was RM and steady, and when I looked at his face, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen in anyone else's for a very long time. Not pity, not calculation, just a simple, straightforward interest that made me feel like I was standing on solid ground for the first time in months. I'll be there, I said. And Su Yan, yes, bring your own coffee. I don't trust anyone who serves EARL Grey without asking first. His laugh followed me all the way down the 42nd floor elevator. I'm updating this story twice a week, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss what happens in that conference room. Drop a comment with conference, and I'll make sure you get a notification the second PART3 goes live. The truth about Zhou Mingyuan's funding is about to come out, and it's uglier than anyone expected.
I didn't sleep that night.
I sat on my work stool with the ring box open on the desk in front of me, and I watched the sapphire catch the glow of my desk lamp like it was a tiny, captive piece of the sky. I'd spent 3 months making this thing, and somehow, seeing it back in my possession felt less like victory and more like the opening move of a game I hadn't fully agreed to play. At 2 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from Suwon. She'd sent me a photo of her brother's face from last year, caught mid-laugh at some family dinner. The caption said, "He doesn't do this often. Whatever you said to him today, it worked." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I sent back a thumbs up and went back to STA ring at the ring. At 7 a.m., I got a message from Zhou Mingyuan. The first one since the night before, since I'd stopped answering his calls. It said, "Babe, are you okay? I'm worried. Please just let me know you're alive." 4 more followed in quick succession. "I know you're upset about something. Whatever it is, we can talk about it. Just pick up the phone. I'll come home EARLY tonight. We'll order your favorite noodles. Just please respond. Lin Shi, this isn't funny anymore." I typed out a reply, then deleted it. Typed another one, deleted that too. I wanted to say something cutting, something that would make his stomach drop the way mine had dropped when I'd opened that anonymous email. But I'd learned a long time ago that giving people like him advance warning was like handing a knife to someone who'd already proven they'd use it on you. I put the phone face down and went to shower. By 9:15 a.m., I was standing outside the entrance to Sue Group's headquarters, wearing the only blazer I owned that didn't have a coffee stain on the sleeve. I'd paired it with the RK jeans and my grandmother's silver bracelet, and on my left hand, the ring sat heavy and cool and right. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to wear something I'd made with my own hands. Almost. The second I slid it on, muscle memory took over, and I found myself rotating it on my finger the way I'd done 1,000 times during those long nights in the workshop, checking the fit, the balance, the way the light hit the stone from every angle. It fit perfectly. It always had. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and hushed footsteps, the kind of place where you automatically lowered your voice even if no one had told you to. I gave my name at the reception desk, and the woman's entire demeanor shifted from polite disinterest to something almost reverent. She directed me to a private elevator and handed me a badge that said VIP guest in gold letters that I rode up to the 32nd floor, where I'd been told the conference rooms were located. The doors opened onto a corridor that smelled like new pet and expensive cologne, and I spotted Su Yen standing at the far end, talking to someone I didn't recognize. He was wearing a charcoal suit that made him look like he'd walked straight off a magazine cover, and when he saw me, he broke off his conversation mid-sentence and walked over. "You're EARLY, he said. "You told me not to be late." I figured EARLY was safer. He looked at my hand, at the ring, and something in his face softened.
"Good.
You kept it on." "It's mine." I said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, because it was. "Where's your sister?" "She's already in the room." She wanted to see the look on his face when he walks in. She's been practicing her blank expression in the mirror for the past 20 minutes. He gestured for me to follow him down the hall. "One more thing. He doesn't know I've met you. He thinks this is a Standa RD investor pitch with a technical consultant. He's expecting you to be in the background, quiet and supportive. He's not expecting you to be the person sitting across the table from him, making eye contact. I know what he's expecting. I've been that person for 3 years. Suyen paused at the conference room door. His hand rested on the handle, but he didn't push it open. Instead, he turned to face me fully, close enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the tiny silver flecks in his eyes that I hadn't noticed before. "One more thing," he said, his voice dropping low. "If at any point you feel like you can't do this, just touch your EAR. I'll shut it down. No questions asked. We can try again another day, or we can scrap the whole thing. Whatever you need." You always this CA refill with people you just met. No. He held my gaze for a second longer than Nisa Seri, just with people who draw phoenixes on their pitch decks. He pushed open the door. The room was massive, a long oak table surrounded by leather chairs, and at the far end, Soo-won was standing by the window pretending to look at the view. She spun around when we walked in, and her face broke into a grin that she quickly suppressed into something more professional. On her left hand, I noticed there was no ring, just BA reskin, and a thin gold band she probably wore for decoration. "You look like you're about to throw up," she said to me, not unkindly. "It's fine. I had a smoothie liar, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose it the second he walks through that door, so you're not alone." "He's not the one throwing up today," I said. "He's the one who's going to wish he stayed home." Soo-yeon took his seat at the head of the table, and I sat down to his right. Soo-won settled in across from me, her hands folded on the polished wood, and I realized she was vibrating with a kind of nervous energy that could power a small city. I reached across the table and touched her wrist, just for a second. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Then the door opened, and Jo Ming-yuan walked in. He looked good. He always looked good, that was the thing about him. 3 hours of sleep and a complete moral collapse, and he still managed to look like he'd just stepped out of a cologne commercial. His suit was tailored perfectly, his hair was styled just right, and his smile was the practiced one he'd used on me 1,000 times before. Then he saw me. The smile froze on his face like a paused video. His eyes dropped to my left hand, to the ring, and I watched the exact moment he connected the dots. He blinked once, twice, 3 times, like he was trying to reboot his own brain. "Lin Shi," he said, and his voice cracked on my name. "What are you doing here? I'm the technical consultant." I tilted my head at him, keeping my voice light. "Didn't Soo-yeon's office tell you I've been consulting on this project for weeks?" "I'm surprised you didn't know."
He looked at Soo-yeon.
He looked at Soo-won. He looked back at me, and I could practically see the HARS turning in his head, trying to find an angle, a way out, a lie that would work. There wasn't one. I'd spent 3 hours listening to his lies, and I'd gotten very good at recognizing the signs of someone about to spin one. "Please sit down," Soo-yeon said, gesturing to the empty chair at the other end of the table. "We have a lot to cover, and I'm sure Lin Shi has questions about the financial model she helped review." Ming-yuan sat down. He didn't have a choice. I watched him lower himself into the chair like a man walking to his own execution, and I felt something arms spread through my chest. It took me a second to recognize it. Satisfaction. Pure, simple, bone-deep satisfaction. For the next hour, we ran through the presentation. Soo-yeon asked questions about cash flow, about revenue projections, about the timeline for bringing their product to market. Ming-yuan answered them all, his voice getting steadier as he went along, and I could see him rooting to relax. Maybe this was going to be okay. Maybe I was just there to observe. Maybe the ring was a coincidence. Then Soo-yeon leaned back in his chair and said, "I have one final question. It's about the collateral you're offering for this round. Your presentation lists personal assets, including a property in the Southern District and a portfolio of private equity stakes. But I noticed something odd in the documentation. The ownership records for the property don't match the name on the loan application." Ming-yuan's face went pale. "That's an administrative error. I'll have my lawyer fix it." "Your lawyer is your cousin's wife's brother, isn't he? The one who got disbay read for falsifying documents last year." Soo-yeon's voice was mild, almost bored. "I don't think he's going to be able to fix this one. You see, I had my team do a deeper dive into your financials after our preliminary meeting. And we found some discrepancies that are frankly, remain." I watched the sweat RT to form on Ming-yuan's forehead. I watched his hands clench on the table. I watched him realize in real time that he'd walked into a trap that had been laid weeks before he ever sat down in this room. "The property you're claiming as collateral," Soo-yeon continued, "is actually owned by a holding company that traces back to a joint account you read with someone else. That someone else is currently sitting at this table. And according to the records, she never signed any documentation authorizing you to use that asset for business purposes." All eyes turned to me. Ming Yuan's face was the color of old milk. Is that true? Lin Suyan asked, his voice perfectly neutral. Did you authorize the use of your Sha Red assets as collateral for this project? I kept my face expressionless. I don't recall signing anything. In fact, I don't recall ever being asked. Then you've been defrauded. Both of you. Su Yan looked at Ming Yuan with the calm, unblinking gaze of a predator who had already made the kill. This meeting is over. The funding is off the table. And I will be referring this matter to our legal department for further investigation. Ming Yuan shot to his feet. His chair scraped backway RD across the floor, and for a second, I thought he might actually lunge across the table. You can't do this. I have other investors. I have a pipeline of interested parties who would kill to get in on this deal. Then call them, Su Yan said. But I don't think you're going to find anyone else who wants to work with someone who stole from his own fiancé to fund a failing business. My people have already STA roots spreading the word. By the time you leave this building, every major investor in this city will know exactly who you are and what you did. Ming Yuan's eyes flew to me. Lin Shi,
Please.
I can explain all of this. It's not what it looks like. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for the right time. You have to believe me. Believe you, I stood up and I felt the power shift in the room like a physical force. I believed you for 3 hours. I believed you when you said we were building a future together. I believed you when you said you loved me. And you repaid that by stealing my designs and giving them to another woman while telling her I was a nobody who couldn't let go of a dead relationship. I'm done believing you. He opened his mouth to speak again, but I didn't let him get a word out. I walked around the table, slowly, deliberately, and stopped in front of him. I reached up and straightened his tie, the same gesture I'd done 100 times before. His hands were shaking. I noted that with quiet satisfaction. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to walk out of this building with nothing. No funding.
No collateral. No fiancé. No ropietaschen.
You're going to spend the next 6 months trying to salvage something from the wreckage of your CA rear, and you're going to fail because the people who would have invested in you are already getting calls from Su Yan's team. And when you've hit rock bottom, you're going to remember this moment. You're going to remember that you had everything and you threw it away because you thought you could get more. His eyes were wet. I'd never seen him cry before. It was almost satisfying, except for the party where I realized I didn't feel anything at all.
No pity. No anger.
Just a great, yawning emptiness where my love for him used to live. Now get out, I said, before I decide to press charges for fraud. And trust me, I have the documentation to make it stick.
He left.
He walked out of that room with his shoulders hunched and his head down, and I watched him go with the ring heavy on my finger and Su Wan's hand wrapped around mine under the table. When the door clicked shut behind him, I exhaled the breath I'd been holding for 3 hours. It came out in a shudder that shook my whole body, and I felt Su Yan's hand on my shoulder, steady and RM. You did good, he said. Better than good. You did the thing I wasn't sure anyone could do. I did the thing I should have done a long time ago. I turned to face him, and I was surprised to find that my eyes were dry. What happens now? He looked at me, at the ring, at my grandmother's bracelet, at the steel spine I'd finally remembered I had. Now you go home and get some sleep. Tomorrow, we STA building that new jewelry line. And if I'm being completely honest, I've been drawing up concepts for the first collection since the day I saw your portfolio. I laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh I'd had in months. You drew up concepts for my collection, someone had to. He was smiling now, that quiet, almost smile that I was rooting to recognize as genuine. I'm not about to let the most talented designer I've ever met walk around without a platform to show her work. That would be a waste of a perfectly good phoenix. What to see what Lin Shi designs for her first official collection. Chapter 4 drops on Friday, and trust me, it's going to be the rightest thing she's ever made. Comment Phoenix below, and I'll send you a sneak peek of the sketches. Spoiler alert, the sapphire makes a comeback, but this time, it's not the only gem in the spotlight. The first week after the conference room was a blur of paperwork and sleepless nights. Suyan's legal team moved fast, faster than I'd expected, and by the end of day 3, I had a formal contract in my hands that spelled out exactly what I was getting into. Creative director of the new division. Full ownership of my designs. A budget that made my eyes water and an assistant who actually knew how to use the software I'd been hacking together for YRS, that I signed it without reading the fine print. I knew that was stupid, but I didn't see a re. I'd spent 3 YRS being CA full, being measured, being the responsible one who checked every box and dotted every I. For once, I wanted to leap. Suwon showed up at my studio on Friday morning with a box of pastries and a laptop full of Mood Boa RDS she'd been compiling since the day we'd met. She'd thrown herself into the project with the kind of manic energy that only comes from someone who's been wronged and wants to prove something. I recognized it because I felt it too. We're calling it Phoenix, she announced, spreading her Boa RDS across my work table. I know it's obvious, but it works. Rising from the ashes. STA, rooting over. Plus, my brother told me about the sketch on your pitch deck, and I think it's perfect. I looked at her Boa RDS. They were good. Better than good. She'd pulled images of fire opals and smoky qua artesi and deep crimson GA runettes, all set against backgrounds that looked like they'd been shot at sunrise. There was a theme emerging, something about light breaking through darkness, and I could see the collection forming in my mind before I'd even touched a pencil. Your brother talks too much, I said, but I was smiling. He doesn't talk enough, actually. That's the problem. He's been walking around the office with this stupid look on his face for days, and everyone's wondering what happened. Suwon paused, her hands hovering over a photo of a rough-cut Ruby. You know he hasn't dated anyone seriously in for YRS. The last one was a disaster. She tried to steal trade secrets and sell them to a competitor. He doesn't trust easily. I don't either. Yeah, but you're both doing this thing where you pretend you're just business partners, and it's honestly exhausting to watch. I'm not saying you need to get married tomorrow. I'm just saying you could at least admit there's something there. She looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. The way he looked at you in that conference room. That wasn't just about investment strategy. I didn't answer. I picked up a pencil and STA route sketching the first piece of the collection, a necklace that would feature a central stone suspended in a cage of twisted gold. The design came out of me fully formed, like it had been waiting for permission to exist. Suwon watched in silence, her pastries forgotten, and when I finally set down the pencil, she let out a low whistle. That's the one, she said. That's the centerpiece. It took us 3 weeks to finalize the first batch of designs. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by coffee and the kind of creative fire I hadn't felt since before I'd met Zhou Mingyuan. Suyan stayed out of my way mostly, but he'd are at my door at odd hours with takeout containers and questions that pretended to be about logistics but were really about checking in on me. How's the sleep? He asked one night, setting down a bag of dumplings on my desk. Non-existent. But the work is good. Always the work. He pulled up a stool and sat down across from me, close enough that I could smell the familiar scent of his cologne. I had a meeting with my legal team today. Zhou Mingyuan's case is moving 4-way road. He's going to be facing charges for fraud and misappropriation of assets. It's going to be messy, but it's going to be thorough. I picked up a dumpling and bit into it, letting the RMTH spread through me. He deserves worse. He'll get worse. The word's already out in the investment community. No one's going to touch him now. He's a liability. Suyan watched me eat, his eyes soft in the dim light of my studio. But that's not why I'm here. I wanted to show you something. He pulled out his phone and swiped to a photo. It was a sketch, rough and unfinished, but I recognized the lines immediately. It was the necklace I'd drawn that first day with Suwon, the centerpiece of the Phoenix collection. But someone had added to it. Someone had drawn a second pendant, smaller, more intimate, designed to hang alongside the main stone like a shadow. Suwon sent me the draft, he said. I know I shouldn't have touched it, but I had an idea. The main piece is for the collection. But this smaller one, this could be something just for you. Something you keep for yourself. A reminder of where you STA root. I STA read at the screen. The edition was delicate, almost invisible, but it changed the entire composition of the piece. It turned the necklace from a statement into a story. And I hadn't thought of it, which meant Suyen had been paying closer attention to my work than I'd realized. "You added this," I said. "I added this." He didn't apologize. He didn't deflect. He just sat there, waiting for my reaction. "If you hate it, I'll delete it." But I thought it might work. The pendant, the smaller one, it's like the pa-RT of you that survived all the bad stuff. The pa-RT that's still standing.
Suyan.
I set down my dumpling and looked at him properly. "Why do you care so much about my collection? You're an investor. You're supposed to be looking at spreadsheets and returns, not sketching jewelry designs at midnight." He was quiet for a long moment. The hum of the city filtered through the window, distant and muffled. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost hesitant. "Because I've been sketching designs at midnight for the past 18 months, he said. "Ever since I saw your portfolio, I've been trying to recreate the feeling it gave me. The way your lines moved, the way you solved problems that no one else even noticed. I couldn't explain it to anyone. I couldn't even explain it to myself. But it's been there under everything I do, this thought that I needed to meet the person who made those drawings." "You could have just said that at the pitch meeting." I didn't know how. He laughed, a soft, rueful sound. "I'm not good at this. The personal stuff. I'm good at deals and logistics and making things happen. I'm not good at telling people that I've been thinking about them for over a year." I reached across the desk and took his hand. His skin was warm, his fingers long and steady, and I felt something shift in the room, something that had been building since the first time I'd seen him in that elevator. "You're pretty good at it," I said. "For someone who's not good at it." He turned his hand over and laced his fingers through mine. "So, what happens now with us? I mean, not the business. The other thing. The thing I've been trying not to think about, because I didn't want to mess it up." "The other thing," I repeated, tasting the words. "I don't know. I've never done this before. The whole falling for someone who actually sees you thing. I'm not sure I know how." "Neither do I." He squeezed my hand. "But I'd like to find out. Together. If that's something you'd want." I looked at him, at the reeful hope in his eyes, and I thought about all the nights I'd spent alone in the studio, convinced that I wasn't worth anyone's time unless I was producing something useful. I thought about the ring on my finger, the one I'd designed and lost and gotten back. I thought about the phoenix I'd drawn on a whim, the one that had somehow led me to this exact moment. "Yeah," I said. "I'd want that." He didn't say anything else. He just leaned forward and kissed me, soft and tentative, like he was asking for permission. I gave it. I gave it with both hands, with the ring still warm against his chest, with the sketches scattered across my desk like proof of everything I'd survived. When we pulled apart, Suyen was smiling. That real smile, the one I'd only seen glimpses of before. "Good," he said. "Because I already told Sue, once she's not allowed to plan the wedding for at least 6 months. "You told her what?" "She's been making Pinterest boa RDS since the day we met." I figured I should get ahead of it. He stood up, still holding my hand, and looked at the sketches on my desk. "These are going to be incredible. The collection, I mean. But also this." He gestured between us. "Whatever this is. I think it's going to be incredible too." I didn't have words for that, so I pulled him back down and kissed him again. The dumplings went cold. The sketches sat unfinished. And for the first time in years, I let myself stop working long enough to just feel something. The next morning, Sue Wanbie ridged into my studio with a triumphant grin and a printout of the wedding Pinterest boa RD she'd apparently been curating for weeks. I threw a pillow at her head. She ducked and kept laughing. "He told you?" I said. "He told me." "Finally. I've been waiting for ages." She flopped onto my sofa and held up the printout. "Look, this is the color scheme. Dusty rose and gold. It's going to be gorgeous. And I already found a venue that does outdoor ceremonies with the skyline in the background. You're going to love it." "Sue Wan, I just kissed your brother for the first time 12 hours ago. We're not planning a wedding. Yet." She winked at me. "But you will. I've seen the way he looks at you. He's got that same goofy expression he had when he was 16 and had a crush on his math tutor. He's gone." Completely and totally gone. I looked down at the ring on my finger, the one that had STA root all of this. Somewhere in the city, Zhou Mingyuan was probably still trying to salvage his crumbling life. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about the collection I was building, the team I was assembling, and the man who'd sketched a pendant for me at midnight because he wanted to be part of my story. 6 months, I said to Su Wan. Give me 6 months to get the launch done. Then we can talk about Pinterest Boa RDS. She squealed and hugged me so RDINEARLY dropped my coffee. Somewhere in the building above us, I knew Su Yan was probably getting a play-by-play from his assistant, and I knew he was probably smiling that soft, real smile that I was rooting to collect like precious stones. The launch party is going to be wild. Chapter 5 wraps everything up with a twist that even I didn't see coming. Subscribe now and hit the bell so you don't miss the finale. And if you've been following Lin Shi's journey, drop a comment with your favorite piece from the Phoenix collection, so FAR. I have a feeling Su Yan's going to be taking notes. The launch party was 6 weeks away when everything NEARLY fell apart. I'd been working out of a new studio that Su Yan had set up for me on the 35th floor, a glass-walled room with a view of the river that made me feel like I was floating above the city. Su Wan had moved her operations in next door, and we'd established a rhythm that felt almost like a real team. She'd handle the marketing and the mood Boa RDS. I'd handle the actual making. Su Yan would appare at random intervals with food and questions that were increasingly less about business. But on a Tuesday afternoon in late September, I got a call that stopped everything. It was from the supplier I'd been using for the Phoenix Collection signature stones. A small family operation in Thailand that I'd worked with for years, the kind of place that sent you photos of the rough gems before they were cut, so you could feel like you were part of the process. The owner's voice was shaky on the phone. Lin Shi, I have bad news. The shipment we sent you last week, the GA Renettes and the Smoky Qua RTZ. It's been intercepted. Customs is holding everything. They say the paperwork doesn't match, and they're investigating for potential fraud. My hand tightened on the phone. What paperwork? We've been using the same documentation for 3 years. I know. I don't understand it either. But someone filed a complaint. An anonymous tip about mislabeled materials. They're saying we read the stones as commercial grade when they were actually premium. It's a tariff violation. They're holding everything until they can sort it out. I sat down heavily on my stool. How long will that take? Weeks? Months, maybe. They're backed up, and they don't prioritize these cases unless there's a push from the importer. You might need to find a different source for this collection. I'm so sorry. I hung up and sat in silence. SDA rang at the empty workbench in front of me. The entire collection was built around those stones. I designed every piece to highlight the specific color variations in that shipment. I'd spent hours on the phone with the supplier, picking out each individual gem, making sure the tones worked together. Replacing them at this stage would mean STA rooting over. We'd miss the launch. We'd miss the holiday season. We'd miss everything. Suwon found me an hour later, still sitting in the same spot. She took one look at my face and immediately dropped her bag and came over. Tell me, she said that I told her. Her face went through a complicated series of expressions, ending on something that looked like controlled fury. Someone tipped off customs, she said slowly. Someone who knew exactly what shipment to target and exactly what to say to cause maximum damage. That's what I was thinking. She pulled out her phone and STA root typing furiously. I'm calling my brother. He knows people in customs. We can get this expedited. But it's going to take time, and we're on a deadline and dash. She stopped mid-sentence. Wait. Who knew about the shipment besides you and me and the supplier? I thought about it. The shipment details had gone through a few channels. The supplier's office. My assistant. The logistics company I'd hired to handle the import. And Zhou Mingyuan, I said. He was in my studio last year, before everything fell apart. He saw the supplier's contact information. He saw the schedule I was working on. He knew exactly what I was planning. Su Wan's eyes went wide. You think he's behind this? I think he's the only person in the world who would want to sabotage me this badly. I think he's desperate and cornered, and he's looking for any way to hit back. I stood up, the anger finally rooting to burn through the shock. He doesn't see a re about the cost. He doesn't see a re about the legal trouble. He just wants to see me fail. He's not going to get that. Suwon grabbed my arm. We're going to fix this. My brother is going to fix this. And when we're done, Zhou Mingyuan is going to regret ever thinking he could mess with you. She was right about Su Yan. Within 2 hours, he'd made calls to 3 different contacts in the customs office, and within 4 hours, we had a preliminary hearing scheduled for the next morning. The stones would be released, but only if we could prove they'd been properly documented and that the anonymous tip was false. I spent that night gathering every piece of paperwork I had. Emails, invoices, shipping records, photographs of the stones in their raw state. I organized them into a binder, so thick I could be able to lift it. Suyan showed up at midnight with coffee and a grim expression. There's something else, he said. I've been looking into the logistics company. The one you hired for the shipment. They're not the same one you used last year. No, I switched after the last one lost a package. This one came recommended by someone in the industry. Who, I thought back. The recommendation had come through an email 4-way RD, a casual suggestion from a contact I'd met at a trade show. I'd trusted it without thinking twice. An acquaintance, I said slowly. Someone who said they'd had good experience with the company. Suyen pulled out his phone and showed me a screen. The logistics company's registration documents, with a name at the bottom that I recognized. It was the same name that had 4-way RD me the recommendation. Which meant the recommendation was a setup. Someone had deliberately steered me Tawa RD, a company that would process my shipment with the wrong documentation, setting me up for exactly this kind of problem. Zhou Mingyuan didn't do this alone. I said, no. He had help. Someone inside your network. Su Yan set down the phone and looked at me. Do you know anyone who might have a grudge against you? Anyone who's been acting strange lately? I thought about it. The trade show contact had been friendly, helpful, the kind of person who always remembered your name and asked about your projects. But there'd been something off in their last few emails. A tone of interest that was a little too pointed. Questions about my schedule that had seemed casual at the time. Her name is Chunli, I said. She works for a rival jewelry house. We met at a conference 2 years ago. She's always been nice to me, but she's also always been asking questions. About my clients, my processes, my supply chain. I thought she was just networking. She was gathering information. Su Yan's voice was flat. And she sold it to Zhou Mingyuan. We spent the next hour piecing it together. The logistics company recommendation had come through Chunli, who had conveniently attached the wrong paperwork to my shipment file. The anonymous tip had been placed from a burner phone that traced back to an array code that matched Chunli's office. And the timing, right before my launch, was too perfect to be coincidental. I'll handle her, Su Yan said. I'll make sure the trade association knows what she's been doing. She's not going to be working in this industry for much longer. But right now, we need to focus on getting your shipment released. The next morning, I walked into the customs ring with my binder and my grandmother's bracelet and the ring still on my finger. Su Yan sat beside me, his presence solid and reassuring. Suwon was in the back row, taking notes on her tablet, and GLA rang at the customs officer, like she could intimidate him into submission. The hearing lasted 3 hours. They asked me about every single piece of paper in the binder. They asked about the supplier, about the stones, about my history of importing materials. I answered every question with the same steady voice I'd used in the conference room, the voice that had taken me from nobody to creative director in a matter of weeks. At the end of the hearing, the officer looked at me and said, the tip was false. We're releasing the shipment. But I'd recommend being more careful with your logistics partners in the future. Someone Clea RLY wanted to cause you problems. I thanked him, packed up my binder, and walked out of the room with Su Yan's hand on the small of my back. Suwon was already on the phone with our PR team, planning the announcement that the launch was back on schedule. That night, we celebrated in my studio. Suwon had ordered pizza, the kind with the fancy toppings that cost twice as much as regular pizza, and tasted about the same. Su Yan had brought champagne, which we drank out of coffee mugs because I didn't own real glasses. You know, Suan said, her cheeks flushed with champagne and happiness. This is going to make a really good story someday. The time we almost lost everything, and then we got it back. It's not a story yet, I said. We still have to actually launch the collection. That's the Ha-RD Pa-RT. No, the Ha-RD Pa-RT was the customs hearing. The launch is going to be easy. You've got the designs. You've got the stones. You've got a team that actually CA residential about you. She pointed at me with her pizza slice. And you've got my brother, who's been looking at you like you hung the moon for the past 6 hours. Suyen didn't deny it. He just wrapped an arm around my shoulder and pulled me closer. I'm allowed to look at my girlfriend however I want.
Girlfriend, Suwan repeated.
Finally, I was STA rooting to think you two were never going to use that word. I leaned into him, feeling the RMTH of his body through my sweater. The shipment was coming. The launch was back on. The woman who'd tried to sabotage me was going to face professional consequences. And Zhou Mingyuan, wherever he was going to have to watch me succeed without him. Fine, I said. Girlfriend, boyfriend, business partners, partners in crime. Whatever you want to call it, I'm not letting go. Su Yan kissed the top of my head. Suwon took a photo of us with her phone and immediately posted it to her Instagram story. And somewhere in the building below us, the stones I designed my entire collection around were finally being released from customs, making their way to my workbench, where they become something beautiful. Asterisk, asterisk, one more chapter to go. The launch Pa-RD is coming, and I promise you, there's a moment that's going to make all of this worth it. Subscribe now so you don't miss the finale, and drop a comment with your predictions for how Zhou Mingyuan shows up at the Pa-RD. Spoiler alert, he does. And he's not alone. Asterisk, asterisk.